video, we have Kyle Freeland here on the left and then Zach Plesac here on the right. This one is going to be the visual for the glove side between these two, and how the glove side kind of influences the trunk. So it's the relation of the glove side mechanics and the trunk rotation mechanics. So to put it simply, how certain individuals accomplish the same goal of the glove side mechanics, but just go about it differently. So what we're going to see here with Kyle Freeland is he's more neutral with his trunk. Okay. So we'll obviously screen it and talk about it as we move on. And then if you're somebody that has seen Zach Plesac in the past, you know that he's extremely counter rotated and his glove side even helps aid into that. So obviously the two individuals are different, and diving into the screening, we're going to see how they both accomplish the same goal in terms of creating rotational energy, creating stretch, torque, whatever you want to call it, by way of having essentially a delay mechanism and how they kind of both go about it differently. So let's go ahead and screen here. Kyle Freeland, lefty. You're going to notice the glove side is actually going to point a little bit more linear. Now, this is the kind of misconception as far as what I see as linear energy distribution. Wow, words are fun. Linear energy distribution. So you can tell by like where he's targeted his glove, it's not like at home plate, right? We'll see in a different video. We're going to talk about that as well, but it's not at home plate. But what I see as a more of a linear glove side and how it differs from a over-rotated glove side is what the posture of the trunk is telling us. So for Kyle here, this video is basically straight on, right? So you can see the rubber is in line with second base. So it's pretty much straight on. So it's giving us a really good viewpoint of this. Now, I will go off the trunk posture, and I'll even say, like, I perceive that as a neutral trunk. Essentially a preset neutral trunk. So you can see where it is right here. You can see half the last name, and that posture here of his trunk in his peak leg lift does not change when he goes and establishes his glove side. Okay, so I would say that there's a neutral trunk and he's linear with his glove side. So now you see the front side glove side extension, and he accomplishes the same task in terms of creating rotational energy and stretch and increasing his forward acceleration, which is just, you know, an energy system by way of all of these components and getting himself into, you know, just a really good position. Very similar to how kind of Jacob deGrom goes about his action reaction, which for those of you guys listening from the ebook, we'll talk about that as well. But he accomplished the task. Okay. Essentially buy time for your trunk to get into a neutral standpoint when you anchor down with your front foot. Okay. You want to create stretches. For me, when we really simplify, that's like a huge piece that we want to make sure that we're accomplishing, and how the glove side mechanics can help aid into that. Now it's on the other side over here with Plesac where it gets interesting, because we talk about how front side extension can help aid into that time sensitive manner of keeping your trunk neutral up until your anchor point. You see a lot of younger kids, who maybe have a problem with like over rotating their trunk, or even just early trunk rotation. And you'll see their glove arm, you know, be a little bit shorter, a little bit more compact, especially guys that are, you know, adapting to try to get a little bit more hand connectivity, which is great. But what you see is they don't have that timing mechanism. Now, I think what Plesac does here in terms of, you know, he's obviously counter rotated, but you also have to remember, I've done a lot of stuff on this as well. When you have like this hand path connectivity, when you have this simplified hand path or arm action, whichever you like to call it, you can then increase, you know, your acceleration rate. You can delay your handbrake of your glove. Obviously, these guys aren't the open side video, which would give us a pretty better indication of when they are separating their hands. Plesac also is somebody less internal rotation of the back hip, and he's getting his foot down fairly early, right? Or Freeland, I feel like Freeland's got a lot longer stride, gets that extension there. So obviously there's multiple layers and multiple components that are gonna factor in on the difference of the glove side. But I just wanted to make this video on how Freeland, who's a little bit more linear with his glove side comparative to Plesac, who's clearly, counter rotating his trunk, but getting into exactly, the posture that we want when he anchors down with his front foot. Okay. Same with Freeland over here. That's supposed to be this way. Malo mia. That's my bad in Spanish. So it's interesting, right? Because like you can kind of make your own claims about what kind of goes into what in terms of this, but this is why I want to do multiple screenings on multiple components regarding the glove side, because it's just another piece to look at, which makes it extremely important that when we're dealing with, an individual, like this has to be individual specific. We have to kind of understand the way that this person that we're working with, how they move, what their body like wants to do, right? And then with that given information that the body is essentially telling us through movement screenings or mechanical screenings, then we can incorporate some of these cues or mechanisms or whatever. And like I said in the ebook, kind of trial and error with some things that potentially work out or could work out. And then you find your sweet spot, right? But we'll do more videos. Like I said, there's going to be some components there in regards to the drive leg and how, I think the trunk counter rotation, or I've done a video on this before as well, like the trunk tilt, how it can load the drive leg. It can help aid in that component. But yeah, so just to kind of sum this up, Freeland more linear with his glove side, which is still going to help him get into the neutral trunk posture that we want upon anchor point. So he doesn't need any more counter rotation of his trunk to buy time or to essentially like kill time. Whereas Plesac, drastic in terms of his trunk counter rotation upon hand separation, which he probably needs because he's so, rotationally aggressive. Wow. When he anchors down, right? So he gets a lot of power through rotational energy, through torque. And he knows that if he were to go more of a neutral trunk and linear glove side, since he is so aggressive with his trunk, then when he lands, he'd already be opening up and losing that stretch and losing that rotational energy that we want to hold until we can really anchor down into the ground. So that's why it's important to be extremely intentional with the person that you are working with and identify these kind of things that the body wants to do. And I think really when we boil it down, take this for what it's worth. I don't know if it's an absolute yet. It's kind of a theory, but the three different types of energy systems that are present when we're throwing a baseball and how we can kind of manipulate each one of them in terms of like how our body is anatomically structured, what our restrictions are, limitations, stuff like that, and how we can maybe do more of one energy and obviously have a restriction of one energy. So we're looking at the way that we put energy into the ground with our drive leg, so ground force energy. We're looking at just overall forward like acceleration towards your desired target, towards your desired task. That's an energy production system. And then rotational energy through separation, through segmentation of the two rotations, which is what we just talked about here with their ability to anchor down in such a posture that allows them to produce high amounts of rotational energy, which I believe when we look at it simply like the rotational energy standpoint of it is the one that we're probably going to rely on most to produce our power, our throwing velocity. But yeah, I'll probably do more stuff on that as well. If you're coming from the ebook, probably do like a little chapter on how that component in and of itself within the energies and how we're producing these energies, how we can kind of use each one of the chapters of, the 6 big components of pitching mechanics and how we can kind of mold that to each individual based on their stability, their movement capacity, anatomical restrictions, or just motor control patterning restrictions, I guess that would be. All right, so that was a long video. I was literally going to shoot for like 5 minutes for each. Trunk counter rotation, trunk neutral. There we go.